Hello and welcome to my review of the Adeptus Mechanicus Skorpius Dunerider. This model will set you back £45. It's a dual unit kit in that you can make either the Dunerider right there, which is the transport option, or the Skorpius Disintegrator, which is right there on the left. I'll bring in the Disintegrator in a moment to just show you some comparisons, even though I did that in the Disintegrator's review, which is great, even though I also did that in the Disintegrator's review. As always, I'll talk a little bit about the model, I'll show you the spare parts, we'll go through the size comparisons, and then we'll load up the rules. The good news about the rules is both of the unit's rules are included in this box set. If you want to view them in book form, you will find them in book 7 of the Psychic Awakening books, called Engine War, and in that book you also get the rules for the Taurasi Skystalkers and the Archaeopter, the Sulphur Hounds and the Tech Priest Manipulus. If you were looking for those rules and you couldn't find them in the Adeptus Mechanicus Codex, which did come out in 2017. Okay, so lovely kit. I think I've touched upon that in the Disintegrator review. It's a bit tricky in terms of mould lines and things, and however, although I've built the Dunerider with a bit of magnetisation and creativity, it is possible to both of the variants. Now there's a lot going on here. Now let's have a look here, a closer look at what's happening. I've got kind of 3 Skitarii Rangers. One's popping up with a pistol. I've got a Servitor with a twin Cognus heavy stubber. I've got these Rangers firing away. Apparently you can fit another, I'd say another 8 more in there, and that's believable. This is one of these transports that, you know, it's believable that you can fit you know, the advertised models, probably because Skitarii are, you know, a fair bit smaller than Space Marines, but still it's a decent sized tank, decent sized transport. We'll compare it with the of course the Repulsor and other Imperial vehicles later on in the review, including the Rhino. So when I first looked at this model, especially the Disintegrator, I wasn't that keen on it. Also the price put me off. You know, £45 seems like a fair amount of money. However, you do get a lot in this kit, and you don't really feel shortchanged, not nearly as shortchanged as if you went out and got the Archaeopter, which is a £60 kit, and it's just extremely expensive for the hobby time that it gives, and also its rules for the game. Maybe Games Workshop or Forge World will bring out newer, better flyers for Mechanicus or transports, who knows, but at the moment this is the solid one. This is the one that I would suggest going for right over that. I like the attention to detail. It's got this little kind of bulkhead door. It reminds me of one of the D-Day landing crafts. I mean, let's face it, you know, you've got this frontal mount here. You know, it is a hovercraft, a hover vehicle, so rather than you know, like a naval vessel per se, but it will operate in the same way. You know, it'll rear up to a defensive position, and then pop, and then the ramp will just fall off. No, and then the ramp will slam down, and then the expendable Adeptus Mechanicus Skitarii Rangers or Vanguard will run out and assault or get it closer with their weapons. I'd suggest you putting Vanguard in it, even though it's got a load of Rangers. Vanguard is probably the better choice. Rangers have their rifles, which are a bit more of a longer range weapon. But still, you've got a Ranger popping out here, which is nice. You've got this Servitor, which I haven't glued on, just because I'd like to just move him about really and have him in different positions. Then I haven't glued these Rangers in. Now I thought that you know, if you had some sandbags, or if you had whatever, I don't know, some crates or something, you could actually leave this on, but then it does look a bit strange with this bulbous thing here, like it does belong on a tank or something. And unfortunately the bulbous armor piece is part of these 3 pieces. You can't get away with not having that on and just having the barrel of the weapon sort of attached to the firing mechanisms and the handle, because there's kind of like a piece missing. Before the barrel, it's kind of curved specifically to go into this armor place, which is a bit of a shame, because it would be really cool if you put some sandbags and things. Maybe you could have them firing a different weapon, but it just looks so cool with these ammunition boxes being fed into the heavy stubber, and the same for this guy, is actually aiming as well. Yeah, they just look really, really cool, just to have them as I really like them. I think they're so cool. You can't put the heavy stubbers in without having them attached to these, so if you did build another one, you're going to have to put the same ranges in, which, I don't know, it would have been cool to have the option of just having the stubbers in and not having the ranges in at all. But unfortunately, their arms are basically attached to the firing triggers. The kit doesn't include a set of sort of spare handless handles, if that makes sense. So you can't just have these weapons in there without having them attached to the rangers. And that's a bit of a shame, because yeah, I would have liked to have seen them have both options. That's one of the big things I'd change about this kit, to have either both of the guns manned, or to have them, you know, not manned. But then again, I would question, well, how could you fire them if they weren't really manned by anyone? But there we go. And these weapons aren't hidden like on the Disintegrator. Anyway, moving forward, it's got a little ladder thing here. It's got two cupolas with this hatch that is quite awkward in that it glues at a bit of an angle. You've got some transmitters for comms. You've got this casing, which is synonymous to like Imperial Knights, if you've seen the back of them. It must be some kind of power plant protector or something. You've got these turbo fans with directional paddles or fins, whatever you want to call them. And yeah, as with the Disintegrator, if this will hold, you've got a big space there with nothing, which yeah, is slightly odd. But there you go, that's my detailed look at the Dunerider. I think it's a lovely model. Having built two of them now, it's completely changed my opinion, and I much prefer them, although I still think that the kit should be £35, maybe stretched to 40, not 45. So let's show you some spare parts. Now, if you build it as the Dunerider, you get all of these spare parts. You get less spare parts, obviously, than if you built it as a Disintegrator. So you get this front armour section, which you could use in scenery, I guess, with the right kind of manipulation. Maybe you could have that on there and have that as part of a bunker, but then you're going to have to build something on top, like a turret. I don't know, it's possible. You could integrate this into some kind of scenery piece. You've got these bars, which again could go on some kind of vehicle, on the front of a buggy, or side of a Land Raider or repulsor. You've got some Cognis weapons. You've got part of the Ferromite cannon. You've got this again, so this could maybe go on. No, it can't go on there. You've got this as well, which is the front of the main cannon for the Disintegrator. You've got a couple of heads and a little targeting array for the missile launcher, and that's about it. So you don't get that many spare parts, definitely not as many as if you built the Disintegrator. And now I'll show you some size comparisons. So the first one I want to make is just with the Disintegrator, which I've talked so much about. So here it is, they're exactly the same size. The Disintegrator looks bigger because it's got this forward armoured prow, and it's got this big cannon on the top, and it's all enclosed. But apart from that, they're pretty much identical size-wise. Comparing it to an Impulsor, which is another troop transport for the Primaris Space Marines, which is the same price, and I still think that this is a very expensive model for what it is. I think you're paying for the R&D, you're paying for it being a new model, and you're paying the kind of Primaris tax, I want to call it, but compared to the Disintegrator, or the Dunerider in this case, the Dunerider is a better model. I think it looks better. It obviously transports 10 models. It's a dual unit kit. It's hard to justify a transport that only carries 6 Space Marines at the same price point as something like this. It's very hard to justify that. Even more hard to justify it when you can also get a Primaris repulsor for £5 more. I mean, I think, like I said in the Disintegrator review, this may have been on purpose for Games Workshop to price the Disintegrator at such a high cost at £45 to make the £50 repulsor look like good value. However, it did backfire a little bit because they then made the Executioner £60, when in all intents and purposes you are getting similar number of parts to the standard repulsor, and it should have been the same price in my opinion. But that just gives you a size comparison at least. And then finally, I like to compare it to a Rhino, which Rhinos are almost pushing £30 now. They're £27.50. But yeah, as you can see, it's yeah, a bit bigger than a Rhino. I want to say maybe a 1/5 or 2/5 bigger than a Rhino, and it's wider all the way, and it can, you know, still transport the same number of units. Just want to do a size comparison with one of the newest units because I didn't get the Dunerider last year. I thought it's useful just to compare both kind of troop transports. The Adeptus Mechanicus only have 2 at the moment, and it's the Dunerider, which is this one, and the Archaeopter. So I hope this, I mean, I've built this as the Stratoraptor, but they're going to be exactly the same size, whichever one you go for. But as you can see, look, Stratoraptor is thinner. You know, it's got these big wings, but the actual body is thinner. I feel like the Dunerider has more detail and a lot more going on, and more options and more posability and all the rest of it. But yeah, this just gives you an idea of where we've come in a year. This model is £60, very expensive compared to your £45, and I would always prefer the Dunerider as the better model and better transport option than the Stratoraptor. And I think that's mainly because Adeptus Mechanicus don't have a lot of elite close combat units like Custodes do. There's no real reason why you need a flying transport to transport your Vanguard or Rangers around the battlefield. Even if you brought the argument to me of like hoplites and a Tech Priest in the Transvector, I still think you'd be better off with your points and your money to put them all in a Dunerider. Okay, that's my little description about that. Let's just show you some more size comparisons with other Adeptus Mechanicus models. So I've got the Sulphur Hounds, I've got the Tech Priest, yeah, obviously you've seen it with a Ranger, and then I'll just show you some Imperial models too. That would look cool if you could actually put them on there. Put just 3 of them. I'm not being fussy. Maybe you could, I think you could squeeze 3 Sulphur Hounds in there. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, other than, I say, extra protection. They're higher up than the tank, but I think it just looked cool if someone did a diorama of these charging out of one of these. But they are faster than the vehicle themselves. Here's a comparison with some Imperial models. So I've got Sly Marbo, Space Marine, and a Primaris. Yeah, Primaris definitely is too tall to board the vehicle. Even a Space Marine is. He is, yeah, he towers above everyone in that transport. So hopefully those size comparisons have helped give you a size of this Skorpius. It is bigger than I expected, which is always a nice thing. Okay, and now you've reached the part of the review where I will go through all of the Skorpius Dunerider's rules. As I said before, you'll get the rules included in the kit, or you'll find them in Book 7, Psychic Awakening Engine War. The Skorpius Dunerider is a transport option. It's a power points cost of a 4. It's the second transport option now, along with the Archaeopter Transvector, which is only 1 power points cost more, I might add. But in terms of match play, the Dunerider is 65 points. You're going to have to pay an extra 4 points for the Cognus Heavy Stubbers, and an extra 4 points for the twin Cognus Heavy Stubber. So that's an extra 8 points. So you're looking at 73 points, because the broad spectrum data tether is free. Not too bad really for 73 points. quite a cheap transport option for what you're getting. So let me go through the stat line. It's one of these models where the more damage it takes, the damage will affect its movement speed, its ballistic skill, and a number of attacks. So it starts off with 12 wounds, and if it's got between 7 and 12, its movement speed is 12 inches, ballistic skill is 3+, attacks 3. 4 to 6 wounds, its movement speed is 9 inches, ballistic skill is 4+, and attacks are D3. And then between 1 and 3 wounds, its movement speed is 6 inches, ballistic skill is 5+, and attacks are 1. It's equipped with 2 Cognis Heavy Stubbers and twin Cognis Heavy Stubber. So let's just talk about that twin Cognis Heavy Stubber, which is, I say it's its main weapon. It's a range 36-inch weapon. It's heavy 6, strength 4, AP 0, damage 1. You can choose this weapon to shoot even if the bearer advanced. When resolving an attack made with this weapon, if the bearer advanced, subtract 2 from the hit roll. That's exactly the same as the Cognis Heavy Stubber, and that's pretty much the same for all Cognis weapons. Speaking of which, it's also armed with 2 Cognis Heavy Stubbers. So same range as the twin. It's got 3 shots instead of 6, and everything else is the same. So already it's pumping out 12 shots at a ballistic skill of 3+. Strength is 4, AP 0, damage 1. It's all right. I mean, I wouldn't write home about its weaponry. It's just got a lot of shots. So it's specifically going to be targeting horde armies or units that have poor armor saves, in the hope of softening that unit up and throwing out 10 kind of squishy Adeptus Mechanicus units out. Abilities: Canticles on the Omnissiah. You'll need to get the codex to find out that. Broad spectrum data tether. At the start of the morale phase until the end of the phase, add 1 to the leadership characteristic of 4 to models from your army if their unit is within 3 inches of any friendly models with a broad spectrum data tether. That's brilliant. You're just adding 1 to the leadership characteristic, which does help because typically Mechanicus leadership is like 6 or 7. Hover platform. This model does not suffer the penalty for moving and firing heavy weapons. That's fine. It's not as needed as the Disintegrator, but it works. And then explodes. When this model is destroyed, roll 1d6 before any embarked models disembark and before removing it from play. On a 6 it explodes and each unit within 6 inches suffers D3 mortal wounds. Transport. This model can transport 10 Secutari infantry or Forge World infantry models. It cannot transport Belisarius Call, Cataphron Breacher or Cataphron Destroyer models. That's quite self-explanatory. Basically you just can't have Call, Breachers or Destroyers, but everything else is fine. Bearing in mind, Castellan robots aren't counted as infantry, so you can't put robots in there, you can't put your Sulphur Hounds in there. The keywords: Imperium, Adeptus Mechanicus, Skitarii, Forge World, Vehicle, Transport and Skorpius Dunerider. So there you go. Its stat line is exactly the same as the Disintegrator, except that it only has a toughness of 6 instead of a toughness of 7. I would like to compare it to a Space Marine Rhino. It is a little bit more expensive than a Rhino. A Rhino is 70 points, but we're talking 3 points more. However, that's not including the Storm Bolter or whatever it's equipped with. Stat line wise, comparing it to a Rhino, well, a Rhino does have a toughness of 7, so that's where it beats it. However, the Dunerider does have 12 wounds instead of 10, but everything else is pretty much the same in terms of movement speed and ballistic skill. Rhino does have this self-repair, which I always find a bit odd that the Mechanicum don't have a repair function, other than if you've got Master of Machines from one of the tech priests. But the Rhino is legendary for it being able to regain lost wounds anyway, so that's got the self-repair. So it's a bit more survivable in terms of the number of wounds, but less survivable in terms of the toughness, but it is undoubtedly better armed with the 9 shots there. But apart from that, it works in a similar way as a Space Marine Rhino. And I guess that the extra toughness comes from the closed canopy. And I guess the extra wounds, the extra 2 wounds, come from the fact that it's just a larger vehicle. But yeah, very useful vehicle for your Adeptus Mechanicus, especially if you want to protect your Skitarii Vanguard or even Rangers. Adeptus Mechanicus needed a model or unit such as this to transport the Skitaris, the Engine Seers, the Rust Stalkers, the Infiltrators, the Electro Priests and so on. They had like a mechanised selection of units already in terms of the Dune Crawler and the robots and the Ballistari even, so it's great that finally we're getting this mechanised infantry to its fullest effect with the arrival of the Dunerider. Anyway, what do you guys think of the model and the rules? Please do put it in the comments below. Do you think it's a better choice than the Transvector? Did we really need the Transvector other than it looks quite funky? Again, it'd be great to hear from you. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. The Omnissiah protects.